Well, hello, and welcome back to another exciting edition of Coffee with Stephen. So, this week's blog has to do with an amendment that I don't talk about very frequently in the Bill of Rights, the Eighth Amendment. Um, Obviously, this particular blog is very Second Amendment focused, although we definitely do discuss the First Amendment, the Fourth Amendment, and Cosmo, we always take special attention to the Third Amendment. But the biggie on this particular blog has to do with the Eighth. And the reason we're talking about the Eighth Amendment is a court case that's going to be heard before the Supreme Court, well, Timby versus Indiana. And it deals specifically with the Eighth Amendment. The Eighth Amendment is a general prohibition against cruel and unusual punishment. It also talks about excessive fines. Now, remember, those of you who've been through some of our courses before are aware of this. The first 10 amendments to the Constitution were never intended upon their ratification to apply to state interference with your rights. They were only designed to prohibit federal interference with your rights. Technically speaking, the states were free to do whatever they wanted to. Now, this changed with the 14th Amendment after the Civil War, where we began a process of called incorporation. Essentially, the Supreme Court will incorporate a right directly to state constitutions via the 14th Amendment. And they have to be very specific. Rarely do they say that the entire amendment has been incorporated to the state via the state constitutions. Typically, they look at specific clauses within the amendments that apply to state constitutions. Now, while the prohibition against cruel and unusual punishment and excessive bail has always been incorporated to the states, the excessive fines clause has not. Now, this particular case is dealing with that. This is important to us because government has effectively turned into a profit-making enterprise. The idea being that if a legislature doesn't have the political ability to get taxes pushed through, they can always rely on fines of citizens to help bolster the general fund. This is completely contrary to the idea of a constitutional republic. It also inadvertently takes the basic onus for funding of the government and puts it on the back of those that are least capable of actually paying, primarily the poor. Now, on top of everything else, it also creates this really sort of strange moral quandary where if there is an excessive fine that's oriented towards stopping somebody from doing a particular behavior, and the fines that are generated go to, say, cancer reduction or things like that, then it almost becomes a moral imperative that you engage in this improper behavior for the purposes of being fined so that the money can go be used in a proper good. And you can see this whole scheme is absolutely ridiculous. In any event, we hope this court case has a favorable conclusion. We hope, as with all of our amendments, that they fully are incorporated to the states and that when there's egregious violations of these amendments, that there are civil rights cases to keep the states in check. In any event, I hope you read the blog. I hope it's not too wonky on you. If you have any questions, always email me at stephen@artemishq.com. And as always, train constantly, train consistently, train with purpose, and above all else, stay vigilant. Until next week, thank you for having coffee with me, and stay safe.